a very interesting guest who is Giovani Gonzalez, who is has built up the company and who's going to tell us all about it and his experience in the industry and his perspective on growth as well. So, Giovani, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm excited to have this discussion with you, Lucas.
Awesome. So tell us about your company. What is it all about?
Yeah, so I initially started the Social Rook as a Facebook ad agency, and that was the first position of the company, and because I was a Facebook ads expert. And then as my client base grew and the people that I was working with and partnering with, they wanted other services. We started expanding our services to Google, and I started partnering with Google ad experts. And then clients also asked about creative, so we found creative specialists. And then we've got, other people that we contract for landing page design and optimization and CRM connections. So little by little over the time, the last 2 years, we've kind of been growing. And then I'd say from an entrepreneurial perspective, we're still definitely a startup, growing and learning. And what better time to learn than during a pandemic about your business?
The best time to learn.
So, yeah. So there's a lot to be learned from all of this, and then looking forward and into the future and how to position ourselves. But I'm kind of proud of where we are right now, and definitely, I see some not big changes, but I see some pivoting happening in the next few months, definitely during and post Corona.
Yeah, we're going to get into that for sure. Maybe you can give us a glimpse already. What do you see on the horizon? What type of changes are you looking into?
Well, right. I think the way we've kind of described it, or been having discussions with our clients, because truthfully, none of us know what's going to happen or when this is going to end. I have my theory that it'll end right before school starts, but that's that we'll see how that turns out. But I do think that there's a period right now that we're people are adjusting. Businesses that are able to adjust and do virtual business, they're now having to solve their problem through of lead generation, maybe stepping away from traditional and going into digital. We've seen that. And then outside of that, then you've got to consider all the businesses that don't have any really connection to what's happening now, and then trying to find a way to speak about their business during this pandemic, and what role can they play during this pandemic, right? So instead of providing a service and saying, let's sell our product right now, it's really more about how do you fit into this conversation, and where can you help people during this, and how can you help people? And if you can't really answer that, then maybe there's definitely a reason for you to take a step back and reconsider a strategy, or changing what you offer. And we're seeing it with local businesses have been super creative during this time. And it's unprecedented. I'm very impressed by some of the solutions they've come up with. So I think there's this during period, and people will continue to make adjustments. And then the post period is basically you have to prepare for that. What's going to happen when the floodgates open and people are ready to do business again? And what's going to happen to them economically in the States? There's this push for this kind of small business loan with 1% interest and some forgivable, expenses. And so I'm curious, will that put people in more debt? Will it actually benefit them? And what businesses won't be there? And all of that is kind of to be, I had to go service my car. I went, serviced my car, drove back, and looking at these businesses, and we saw them all, and it's like, what's going to happen? But typically, we don't work with local stores. We work with mid-sized companies and some large-scale companies. We do have smaller clients that we've had for a couple of years, and some of them are just small, but are in a space that they're allowed to spend, significantly. So.
Yeah, I was about to ask that if you could explain a little bit the types of companies that you're working with. Is that a certain vertical? Is that you alluded to a size a little bit? Maybe you can describe it.
It's a great question. I believe that we should all be doing what we love and with some sort of purpose. And when I started this company, for me, it was very important to not have a vertical and not have a niche. And that's because what I want out of this company is to learn about other people's businesses. I'm a learner at heart. So I want to continue to learn about their companies, about their services, and either adapt and make some changes to my company, or just because I'm learning about something entirely different, versus the other route saying, I provide this service for auto dealerships or for dentists. And then you're stuck there, and it's copy and paste and repeat and replicate, and it does great for revenue, but it doesn't fulfill me, right? Like, or my purpose. And I really do enjoy this work, because I started off as a Facebook ads expert. If I would have come in and bought this company as a side business, then I probably would have said, you know what, let's pick a vertical and let's go that route, right? Because there's really no emotional kind of tie to it. But in this case, yeah. So I basically say that to say we work with CEOs and CMOs mostly, in improving their digital strategies and then executing. So what that means is typically our clients are clients that are spending dollars, whether it's through traditional or in digital, and they just need a way to scale. They haven't been happy with the results. They've been burned by other agencies. And so, our differentiator is like, we want to take the time to get to know you and your company and your business before we start spending dollars. And then, what that does is that we also learn in the process, how does their product impact people, right? Or an impact at the very end of this. So we definitely want to make a difference in the world and not just provide a service to something that doesn't educate people, provide value, improve their quality of life. So it's really important for us to partner with people that we believe in their mission, believe in their cause or their product or service. And everyone has, different feelings about that, but that's essentially what we are. And but yeah, so there's no niche. We've done e-commerce, lead generation for big companies, like I won't name them here, but they're like large-scale global companies. Lead generation for large-scale companies, and then mid-sized companies that are, they're startups, but they're very well funded. They've got, like, we're working with a client now who has like 2 really big celebrities who are backing it. We've done a fundraiser for a celebrity who's part of a big movie, a global movie brand, and they wanted to do some fundraising and sell T-shirts, and we've done some of that. So, if there's a purpose and we believe in it, and it's a solid partnership, it's really about people. I mean, ultimately, like, you could spend 50, 70, 80,000, $1 million a month, but if I don't feel like the business that you run or someone's running is not delivering a great service, or there's no connection there, human connection, then I don't want to touch it.
Makes sense. Very interesting. If you're talking about that customer base being relatively wide in terms of verticals and in terms of size, right? So there's very different types of companies you're working with. How do they end up finding you guys? What's a typical journey that they would go through to discover?
I think this is the struggle for agencies, digital advertising agencies, because it's B2B. B2B is very difficult. So if a company came to me and said, we're a software company and we want to promote our product to other businesses, first thing I say is B2B is super difficult. So you need to understand it's very challenging. It's not even about competition. It's just about the people on the other side, your prospect client. They're being inundated with all of these vendors, all of these services, and all of these products. And they're used to just ignoring these emails, I've never seen, I don't know what's happened with the coronavirus, but I've never seen so many messages on LinkedIn come in the last week, like from random people. And we're all just becoming more and more savvy about it as business owners, right? So your approach to this conversation was approachable. It had a very human element. So I knew when I responded to you immediately and you responded back to me that I was speaking to someone. And so because of that, and because of this purpose, and this is really just new, so I'm trying to define this part about our company so that we can maybe not necessarily niche down, but figure out ways to build meaningful relationships that turn into partnerships and turn into, right? So one thing that I started doing was I started identifying and I'm not the only one to do this, but let's say video production companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? They provide services to some of our prospect clients. So by reaching out to them and saying, hey, some of our existing clients ask about video,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have, and the companies I'm trying to partner with, I know that they're charging a significant amount of money, which means that their clients can also pay where we fall under our guidelines in terms of spend. So they're excited. I mean, literally, I've called places that never heard of me, and I said, I'm looking to partner with a video production company to help serve our clients and maybe build a partnership so we can serve their clients. I'll put you in contact with the VP of the business or with the founder, like immediately, right? And so instead of thinking, and this is interesting, and I'm curious because of your space, automation and human element, like to me, the human element is always going to win versus some sort of automation. Now, if you can make an automated piece work with a human element, then great. But there's going to be something that happens when and we've tried it. We try to do automated LinkedIn messaging through ads or just organically or through tools, considered email automation, all of that. But it's like, if as a business owner who I feel like I can connect with people on the phone or just by meeting them, I want to meet them. They need to hear me. They need to understand that I'm knowledgeable in this space, and that when you work with us, you're going to be working with me. I'm part of the strategy. You can't do that through an automation, right? So, yeah, that's
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, and very interesting just to follow your thoughts around that. Okay. So what I would be curious about, sort of maybe switching gears a little bit, the customers that you're working with, how, maybe what you've seen, maybe let's talk about one specific chapter first. How much would you be involved, in their websites? Because there's one step of bringing people to this page, right? And they have all the different means that your team is working on. Are you supporting companies on the website as well?
So we have core services that we offer, all related to paid digital, and the paid component of it. Then we have these kind of secondary options, and it's all based on whether they ask us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we're going to position ourselves as we run Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram ads, Google ads, but we're not going to say we also do all of this stuff, because we're experts in what we're experts in. However, we have partners that we would say, so if someone says, well, we need a new website, right? And depending on the company, depending on the size of that website, I might interject and say, well, we could help with that, and then, but I'm very transparent. So like this is not a department we have, or this is not someone on our team. We have partners that we bring in on projects, and that way it's all under one entity or one point of contact. But yeah, so that's kind of how we treat that. The one thing that does impact us will be more so like landing pages. Yep. And so sometimes websites are actually our enemy in what we do, because it's, if they want leads and they have a page on their site, like they're going to go to that page and then they're going to click around and, this, so it lowers the conversion rate. So we recommend a landing page. Now, top of funnel, sure, we'll send traffic to the website and let that dictate who we retarget, right? So there might be a need for that as well. But definitely, if we're working with someone, there's an SEO component, or definitely related to Google Ads, I'd say that websites matter and the content matters. The structure of that content matters. Because URLs matter. I mean, just everything has to be so congruent with Google that it's definitely very important. But we don't offer a website as a product or service just because I want us to be digital advertising like experts, and that might change. That's why I went from Facebook ads agency to digital advertising agency, because Facebook could die, Google could die, and if somehow McDonald's is the new platform, like the new digital advertising platform, hey, we provide digital advertising through McDonald's. We want to be the experts in what the primary and top performing platform is.
Makes a lot of sense. Just one small follow-up question on sort of that website piece before we're moving on. Is there something that you've learned, because you mentioned the landing pages being implemented there to help the companies you're working with to increase the conversions? Something that you've learned in this journey of, working on those landing pages, maybe that surprised you, or something that you haven't seen everywhere around the blogs already. Something that you learned about those processes that.
Yeah, there's a lot. So one thing, and I just had this discussion with a client. Sometimes this is surprising, but it's very true. Sometimes bad design works better than good design. So you can have like terrible, you can have a great designer do both. Like you can have your designer, and it's going to take some time to tell them to make something look very bad or cheap or something, but sometimes it works better. And so like A/B testing landing pages, not just with design, but also placement of the content, placement of that form. That form should really be at the top. But the most important thing that's true across the board, and it's new with every client because they offer something different, but it's like that landing page is there to address objections, to address any questions they may possibly have. And if it's just a form and they've got questions and they don't have the option to visit the website, then they're going to leave, and the bounce rate will increase. So you have to give them more meat and content under that form, testimonials, highlighted products and services, just anything that really addresses questions that whether you have a sales team on the other side, just preparing them to understand and helping a sales team or helping whoever's converting them, so that they're qualified leads too. That's the other piece is qualification is important in the copy.
I wanted to jump into that actually. The next question was about how you're thinking about qualification for the leads that you're bringing. Is there processes that you're setting in place with the teams that you're working with? What's your experience there?
Yeah, so with qualification, we typically start with, when we start with a client, we take about 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 weeks to build a strategy, depending on the size of the campaign, the spend, and how much time they have. And during that process, we kind of rely on them to tell us like more about their ideal client or ideal customer. And we extract that, and then we try to implement that and we ask them what's most important to them. Now, also important really quickly is that what's important to the CMO might be different than what's important to the CEO, and you have to make sure that when you have to ask, like, well, what is the CEO? What's their vision? That's very important, because you could be qualifying with your CMO or whoever you're working with. They might be saying, well, we need quantity, and the CEO is like, we need quality, right? So you have to ask that question. But in the event of qualification, it's just consistent copy. You're basically filtering people out and making sure you don't do a bait and switch. You're not too generic in your advertising or in your copy or language, and you want it. So we have got a client who wants multiple people that own multiple physical businesses, right? They say we're getting people that own one physical business, but we want people with multiple. If our ads never say this product or service helps owners of multiple businesses, and we only say this helps business owners, then everybody's going to click it. So you will see an increase in cost per click, and you might see an increase in cost per conversion, but then hopefully the value, the quality is there. But yeah, hopefully that helps answer your questions. All about just including whatever the qualifying questions are, either in a form, and then but it starts with the creative.
Yeah, that's it's probably what I'm getting here. It's like you're getting it from the very first step, like the ads quality, and then maybe even further steps within the form or even after the form. Yeah. Okay, cool. One last question on that before we switching gears one more time. It would be, how are you thinking about analytics? Because what we've been seeing on the podcast here quite a bit is, obviously, tools like Google Analytics and everything is around, but they're not that easy for everybody to read. Not everybody wants to dig into those dashboards. What's your experience?
So I'm one of those people. So I have someone on my team who enjoys that or understands that a lot better. Because I started on the Facebook side, I kind of self-taught myself some Google stuff before I realized, like, it's a different brain. Like it requires, in some ways, it requires a different brain. In terms of strategy, it's similar. but in terms of execution on the technical side. So I'm familiar with Google Analytics, but it's not my expertise. And same with Tag Manager, right? And I think that's the part where it's like, there's a difference between, that's where my business owner hat comes on and my leader hat comes on, because it's like, I know what my expertises are and what they're not. So I'm not going to, if it's a client, for instance, and they're like, well, have you looked at our analytics? I'll say, well, let me ask the team and I'll report back like whatever it is that you need. But yeah, so I mean, we use it. Obviously, we use it a lot. We rely on it for making sure that what's being tracked and what the client's asking for is also visible there. Mm-hmm. Before we launch campaigns, we want to make sure that everything is firing properly, and that they're able to. Some clients are savvier than others. They hop in into analytics and they're saying like, well, the attribution doesn't seem to be right, and so then we have to solve that problem. But I think what's going to change and what's going to be interesting is how the Google Suite changes in its entirety. I'm kind of concerned about the cookie, disappearing, right? And what they're saying it's going to happen in a few years. And that kind of makes me concerned about what does that mean for analytics, or what does that mean for the Pixel? Because the Pixel provides similar, not the same at all, but very similar analytics that Google does. But Google's definitely used as like this universal tool that helps you connect all your marketing and media channels. But I have a client also who just said like they want to move away from giving Google data. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, we don't want to use Google Data Studio and we like having analytics, but if there's any way to not give Google our data, and they didn't explain why, it was actually a prospect client, which I thought was interesting.
Interesting. And one last question on that: how would you share those insights with your clients? Is that custom dashboard, a report? Like, what is the most digestible way that you found makes it very easy for customers to? So I've
been like, at first I used something that was similar to Google Data Studio. I think it was called DataBox, and that was okay for the clients I had at the time, and it was just me. And then I needed something that was automated. But then again, a human element is that what we do is we send an automated report every Friday, or once a week, whenever they prefer it, right before our weekly calls with them. So they have the report, and then we have a call with them, and they can see it, they can ask questions. So that adds a human element, so they're not just seeing it overwhelmed or not understanding what they're looking at. And that what also helps with that is having an initial call when you send the first report, so they can ask questions and just be like, okay, well, I don't know what this is, or can I actually have this demographic or this KPI? But then what we do is once a month we prepare a manual report with, meaning like it's done in Google Slides, and we're taking data out of the dashboards like Facebook or Google or LinkedIn, and we're putting it into something that's very high level. Mm-hmm. Saying here's some action points that we plan to take, because that's what reports don't do. And a lot of clients see those numbers and they're like, yeah, so what? Like, this is great, but how are we going to grow? What does this mean? How do we grow? Had a client yesterday ask for, target KPIs. Our reporting system doesn't provide that, right? So we have to make those ourselves, so that you have to always insert yourself into the analytics, or it will feel automated. And then the client's like, I don't think they're doing anything. This all feels automated.
Very interesting. Okay, so let's switch gears. Since we're slowly coming to an end of the interview, I would like to learn about you personally a little bit more. Sure. What would be a place where you learn, where you educate yourself? Is that books, podcasts, groups of people?
I love books, but I'm also one of those people that, like, anytime I read 2 pages, my eyes get tired and I want to go to sleep. So audiobooks have been my most, in terms of volume. I've read more books in the last 2 months through audiobooks. And I'd say that's not true in the last year, because I've been doing it for a year. But and that's just changed everything. But then I think I mentioned, when you asked a bit about me, I mentioned mindset training and my importance of mindset. And for me to start this business and leave my 9-to-5, it had nothing to do with ability, zero. I was very capable. It had everything to do with the mindset. And in order to do that, every night I would listen to mindset audio before falling, like that you can listen to guided mindset, meditations. So I go to sleep and listen to these, and it sounds crazy, but if I stop listening to them, I notice a difference in the universe bringing me opportunities. The moment I start listening to get to them and just believing, it's this subconscious level of believing in yourself. And I've done other things. I think I would call it, it's kind of like a detox. It's like stay away from news, stay away from negativity, stay away from that type of energy. Because if we're going through social media, even, and if you're looking at your friends' content, whatever it is, whatever you're digesting, or even just looking at all day, that's what your subconscious believes you are or want to become. So I've got stuff here that, I'm looking at like $5 billion yachts and like just crazy wild things that, but I'd rather be looking at that or looking at inspirational quotes. So most of my feed, things that I'm digesting throughout the day, is that. I'd say it's 80% that, 20% bullshit. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse, but that's
fine. That's fine. Nice. Okay. Very interesting. What would be maybe the most recent topic that you really researched and really sort of, had a focus on, maybe a tangible topic you were researching?
Yeah. So I'm still doing it, but it's, I'd say it's sales, right? And this is this piece where, I've been reading just about growth and sales in general. So I was never really I've never been in a sales position as a career role. I've never had to cold call people and all that. So I've just been, I think it's Sales Simplified is the book I read recently, or listened to recently, to be fair. But, and that was very, that was super interesting. And it also made it, I think it brought up some questions just about the ability, like asking all the wrong questions when you're on a sales call, right? So you really should be building you should be building a rapport with someone and learning about them, right? Like on a personal level and learning about what they need versus taking 75% of the conversation and just saying, well, this is what we do and this is how we offer it. And this is like, that matters. It's not going to matter at all. Because at the end of the day, when you deliver a proposal, and because you didn't give them 75% of the conversation, you're going to be missing out when you deliver this proposal. There's going to be things that are wrong. So there's that. And then I've watched The Wolf of Wall Street for the first time. I think it was like 3 months ago. And I was inspired. I was inspired definitely by the hustle. I was inspired by the creativity and the drive, and there's a lot of madness involved there. But then I kind of went to research, The Wolf of Wall Street and where he is today, and I signed up for like a free trial or something. And then he had this. I think it's called the Straight Line. It's kind of his sales approach. Mm-hmm. And so when I get into a topic, I take in all these different opinions and forms of. And I try not to focus on different things at once. So it's like, I've been in the sales kick, so I'm listening to all the sales stuff, and I take pieces that I like that I can apply to our company. And then, and then I unsubscribe from the trial.
Awesome. Cool. So let's wrap things up for this interview by jumping into the rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those? It's usually one word answers.
One word. All right, let's do it.
Or one sentence, whatever is float your boat. Okay, so for your agency, what is the first thing that comes to your head when I say the word marketing operations?
Challenging.
What's the first word that comes to your mind when I say the word sales operations?
Growth.
What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Results.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you would wanted to have fixed for your clients today?
Wow, that's hard. I'd say remarketing, not because we can't do it, but because I see so much potential with new platforms, devices, and all that.
Mm-hmm. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about your agency?
Employment.
And very last question, what's one advice, if you would restart the Social Rook today, that you would give yourself?
It's hard.
Take your time. It's the last one.
It's so hard because, because of today and this market today. And so, but I will say that this is definitely the best, like I was saying earlier, it's the best time to learn. So I think I tell myself, prepare for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one, because if I'm looking back to when I started, or even the 2019, I'm looking at my current client list and whatever it might be, and just be like, well, this is working like butter. Like this is not ever gonna stop. I don't understand. Like I don't see there's nothing that can happen that would break this, or just or challenge this or anything. And so here we are, and now everybody's having to reconfigure and make changes and all that, and we could not control that at all. There's things that we can control, things that we can't.
Awesome. So Giovani, appreciate that you took the time to be part of today's episode of PathMo Presents. Thanks for being on the show today.
No problem. Thank you, Lucas.